Well, hi, everyone. Very warm welcome to you. This is Mark from Panalytics. It's the 23rd of June, busy time of the year for accountants in Australia and New Zealand, but you found time to be with us. A very, very warm welcome. I can see many people joining now from across Australia and New Zealand, many Panalytics members. Thank you very much for joining. Welcome back. Many non-members too. It's a rather large group today, which is exciting. Delighted to have you with us. I look forward to sharing some of the next hour with you. I don't believe we'll need all of that time to get through what we've prepared today, but hopefully you will take something out of this time you spend with us today. We are in the Zoom platform, as you're well aware. Kim is helping today and is monitoring the chat box there. If you have a comment, a question, an idea, a thought that you'd like to share, please feel free to do that. Thank you to those of you who submitted questions in advance. There were quite a lot of questions in advance, and we will record this session so that we're able to share it later as appropriate. And, you know, here we are towards the end of the fiscal year. I was speaking with Colin Dunn, who many of you know some time ago, and we're doing a lot of strategic planning meetings around this month and next month as firms think about 2021, 2022, the upcoming year. They think about it a little bit differently, perhaps in the context of the COVID environment we're in, some business uncertainty, but also a lot of opportunity. And we felt it was a good time to share some ideas on strategic planning, and particularly when you get your team together, your partners together, your managers together, your leaders together, how you can get the most out of that investment of time. So that's what we'd like to talk about today. I'm Mark Ferris, an entrepreneur who's built and sold a couple of businesses, and I'm thoroughly enjoying working with accountants in many countries now and helping them and learning from them as well. The agenda today is pretty simple. A quick overview of this topic, some definitions, and then we'll look at the purpose, what you might set out to achieve in your strategic planning meetings. And we'll talk about some best practices and a couple of resources to finish up, which may help you from here. So we'll get through this quite quickly. Many of you know Panalytics. Again, warm welcome back to our members. We help accountants to build the businesses they want. For some, that's a big business, a profitable business, a good lifestyle business, a business they will sell, etc. We have our software, we have our own advisory practice, we have a huge amount of content, and we're investing further in content right now. We work with accountants in many different places, which is fun because we get to compare and contrast their approaches, and we do lots of work with accountants in a broad range of areas. But today we're really focused on this planning and strategy, which of course is key to success in some of those other areas which are listed there. That's a quick word on Panalytics, but let me invite you please to participate in a poll to get us warmed up and started here. Pretty simple question. I am asking you whether you consistently set aside time for strategic planning. It might be annual for some of you. It might be every 6 months, every 2 years or whatever, but it's got to be consistent and it's absolutely dedicated to strategic planning. Some of you will say, yes, we're very, very disciplined about this. We could be more consistent. Yeah, but it's pretty sporadic, frankly. It's whenever we kind of think about it. And some of you will say, no, we either don't have the time for this strategic stuff or we simply don't see the value. I'll ask Kim to open up this poll now, and we will hear from our group across, this large group across Australia, New Zealand, as to how they approach this. And it's already a fascinating set of results that are coming through, and actually quite surprising to me, frankly. Let's see how this unfolds. I'm going to give you another 5 to 10 seconds. Don't overthink it. It's one of those questions you used to get in school, which is the best answer. There's no right answer here. Let's give it another 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, look, here's the thing. C is the most popular answer. 42% of you, in fact, said C, 35% of you said B. That means 77% of you are in the B or C area. Congratulations, 10% of you, we're very disciplined about this. And there's a few of you, 13%, who said, no, that's not what we do for various reasons. So that's fascinating. I honestly would have put my dollar on B here and I would have lost my dollar. Let's see how I do in the polls which come up later, but that's an interesting insight. So C, it's quite sporadic. Let's get into our work today. And just a few quick definitions and ideas to get us started. What is this thing we call strategy? And I just pulled this off, I think, Wikipedia. I think the key words here are the long-term or the overall aim, right? It's a plan of action designed to help us achieve long-term outcomes, right? Those are things which are typically strategic, and strategy is about choices. There are many, many, many ways we can get to where we want to be, and it's about eliminating the ones that are not so interesting to us. Michael Porter puts it this way: the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. We eliminate those ideas and we arrive at something which gets us to where we want to be in the most efficient way. So, okay, fair enough. Does it really matter? I think most people would agree that without strategic oversight of what we're doing in business, we are less likely to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So yes, it does matter. And some people would say it's the most critical role of leadership. First, to establish the vision for the future of the business, but then to set the strategy for getting there. If we're not doing that as leaders, then we are probably not giving our business the best chance of success. That would certainly be the view of John Cotter, who I like his writing. Now, why then is it challenging to develop strategy? Well, strategy is about thinking. It requires in-depth analysis. It requires absorbing what's happening around us. Whereas the tactics of our business we can do by observation. I like this idea by this author here. We can observe and we can react to what we observe. But when we strategize, we actually have to think and conceptualize. And it takes, therefore, a very different thought process. And in that thought process, we might get exposed to some pretty tough questions, which makes strategizing rather challenging. Simple questions. And just think about this, please, in the context of your business, right? What is the current status? How are you doing right now, right? Have you achieved what you set out to achieve? Are you where you wanted to be? And the answer is probably, well, yeah, in some ways we are, but in some ways we're not. We've hit the revenue goals that we planned to hit, but I'm still working 60-hour weeks. That's not what I planned on. So if that's the case, how did we get here? What did we do which worked for us? And what did we do which didn't work for us? And these are often questions of self-appraisal, which are rather difficult to unravel. But enough about the past. What about the future? Where do we want to go from here? Given where we've got to, where can we potentially go? What does that look like to us? And then, of course, we get into the how questions. And now we're getting closer to strategy. Which of those options, those many options that we have to get us there, do we want to pursue? And it then gets even tougher because probably some of the things we did to get us here are not going to work to get us to the next place. And that's about change. And that may be change in how you sell, how you market, what you sell, your team. It might be change in you and how you approach your business. And so that's a very important thing that we have to consider. It may also be other people that we have to get involved because we're usually more powerful when we're working in teams, particularly teams that share a common goal. So these are some of the tough questions which emerge when we consider strategy and we think about these ideas. So what's the solution to overcome these challenges? Well, we need to set aside the time to think. We need to give ourselves that opportunity to free our minds from the tactics of day-to-day operations and strategize. And it gets a little bit complex because every business is different. Every one of the firms on this call has slightly different needs in how they should strategize, where they should focus. And that's really what I want to talk about next, which is the areas of focus, or the purpose that you should have when you enter into your strategic thinking and your strategy meeting. So let's talk about that for a while. Now, look, later I'm going to say to you that one of the key success factors in strategy meetings is not to try and do too much. So please don't interpret what I'm going to go through now as you have to do all of this. In fact, it's the opposite. You need to choose a couple of things, maybe just one thing, and really focus down on that. Let's look at what some of these things are. Okay, a good place to start is the vision and purpose of your business. Now, many of you have been through exercises around when you started your business. You said, why? Why am I starting this business? What do I want to accomplish? Why does this business exist? Certainly, we need to do that when we start a new business, but we may want to revisit that for a variety of reasons. One is that we've changed. We no longer aspire to do what we thought we wanted to do, or the market has changed and we want to modify our approach accordingly. In Panalytics, we have a methodology of helping firms to arrive at this. There are various ways to do this. We focus on the aspirations of the owners, what they want to personally accomplish through their business and personal activities. We focus on what kind of impact they want to have on the world at large. What change do they want to initiate? And particularly, what change do they want to initiate with regard to their clients, the people that they will be impacting most? And we get firms to think very hard about not just the practical benefits of what they sell, but also the emotional benefits. Because, you know, as accountants, yes, it's true that we may be helping people to file tax returns and so on, but we're also providing security and safety and avoidance of risk, etc. And those are very important emotional benefits that we provide to our clients. And we do all of this with a particular attitude. We infuse our personalities into what we do, and we adhere to certain values. So we need to get pretty clear on what those ideas are. And it's interesting, when you do vision sessions with clients, you can spend a day or two thinking about all of this, but you resolve all of these ideas into a simple statement or two, maybe 2 or 3 sentences, which tries to capture all of this, which is a difficult process to go through. But we have to be very clear on the language to capture all of these ideas. And then once we've done that, what do we do with this vision? Is it something that gets stuck on the wall of the conference room, not to be seen again, except in rare situations? Or is it something that we share with team members, clients, and we infuse into our branding and marketing? That's obviously how we want to use this important work of a vision. So we then might decide to look at this periodically, but I stress periodically. This is not a tactical thing that we do routinely. It's something that we sense is working for us, and if it's not working for us, we may decide to revisit it. And I recommend getting help with an outside facilitator to go through this process that I'm describing here. As I say, Panalytics uses a tool called Vision Builder, which we find is very powerful. So one of the first things that you might consider in your strategic meeting, some of you, is that you want to revisit that vision that you formulated before, or perhaps if you're a relatively new business, you want to clarify it for the founders, etc. Now, other businesses will say, well, yeah, but we kind of done that, and we are much more goals focused. We want to be much clearer on the specific goals that we want to accomplish in the business. Now, I want to suggest to you today that there are 6 areas that you might consider. And by the way, there's no formula to this. This is just what works for us in Panalytics and with our clients as well. And probably the most obvious one, or the one that people default to very quickly, is the top line revenue goal. And I think it's very important whenever you're doing goal setting is to ask yourself why you might be focused on that. Why do we want a certain revenue goal, particularly a growth goal. And there's some pretty obvious reasons, but they will vary depending on your firm. And one of them might be simply to generate cash. This might be cash which leads to greater income for the owners of the business or to reinvest. But sometimes you're trying to build a bigger business. It's less about taking money out. It's about building a bigger business which will attract larger clients, maybe higher paid employees, more productive employees, maybe even investors or a merger opportunity. And, you know, people don't like to admit this, but sometimes we want to grow our businesses for the sake of reputation and even egotistical reasons. I want to be the biggest business in town. I want to be bigger than that business. We often arrive at this. People don't necessarily declare it up front, but that is one of the reasons which drives this kind of goal. And I think the important thing when we're talking strategy is absolute honesty about why we are trying to accomplish what we're saying we are. Now, if we get that understood, we can focus on the what, which is much more simple. Okay, what are those revenue targets by service, by client base, by partner, etc.? And what are the metrics that we want to track to get there? The number of leads from existing clients, from new clients, how many of those we convert, and that explains our sales efficiency, right? So these are numbers that we can get pretty clear on. So let's call that goal number one, revenue. For others, it's much more about the bottom line goal. Why? Again, we ask ourselves that question because people are saying, I want to pay myself more. I want to pull more money out of this business, or I want to reinvest it. Maybe it's a blend of those two, or maybe it's about driving the valuation of your business. And again, we can arrive at some metrics which help keep us on track. And later, I'm going to suggest to you that it's very important to have these metrics or these numbers which we can set as goals and then track against, right? Now, for other businesses, we find it's less about those two growth goals and more about better utilization of your resources, typically human resources. Some of you feel that you should be getting more out of your teams, that perhaps some of you are doing the work that other people should be doing. This is about resource management, and that speaks to the efficiency of the business. And if we understand that as a goal, we can put the particular metrics around it, which we want to measure. There's a couple of examples there. Many of you who've worked with Panalytics know those metrics very well. Now, there's another group of accountants who are saying, look, it's not about growth, and I basically have a broadly efficient organization, but I still feel I'm working those 50 or 60 hours a week, and I want to work less. Simple as that. Maybe I'm approaching retirement, or I just feel I want to work less. But there's another group of accountants who are thinking, I want to work differently. Why do I have to do so much human resource management or hiring? Or why do I have to do sales? I don't like doing sales. Why do I have to do such a lot of technical work? Why do I have to prepare tax returns when I should just be reviewing them? I want to work differently in my business. And this is a goal that we want to get very clear on and then work towards. Now, some of you are thinking, yeah, I'm kind of working my way out of this business. This could take a variety of forms for different owners. I want to sell the business partially. I want to bring on new partners who will eventually buy me out. I want to merge this practice and go and do something else. And maybe there's a family succession opportunity that you're considering. So we want to get really clear on our goals around that. And then finally, there's a group who see your business as a part of a broader community, and you want to impact that community in various ways. And we have firms that are either members of chambers of commerce, doing a lot of charity work, contributing to industry research and so on. And it's purpose driven. Of course, the other side of that coin is it's also business development driven because we build relationships through those activities. So here we have a set of goals that we might want to pursue. But here's where it gets a little bit complex. And in our strategy meeting, we want to consider the following. First of all of those goals are important to some degree, but we need to really focus in on the ones that are most important to us. And that means we understand the relative importance, right? Community, lifestyle may be completely irrelevant to you today while you grow the business. But in 5 years' time, community and lifestyle may be very, very important to you. Importance will shift over time. So we need to check back and see where we're at. And think about the potential for conflicting goals. You know, if I said to you, hey, I only want to work 20 hours a week, but I want to triple the size of my business in the next 6 months, that's not feeling very well reconciled, is it? Logically, we feel we have to work a little harder if we're going to achieve that growth, depending on how your business is set up. So we need to be cautious about that. And we've also got to be a little bit realistic, because if we do not have the skills to achieve the goals that we've set, then we've wasted time setting goals which are not achievable. So think of your competencies, think of what you're good at and what you're going to succeed in. You can still have stretch goals, but they should be related to your competencies. And all goals exist in certain time frames. And part of our strategic meetings are to arrive at what time frames make sense. I talked about metrics and numbers because that helps us to be really rigorous so that we can report on our progress and track against those goals. In Panalytics, we use a tool called Strategize with our clients, which helps to identify these goals, to define them, to understand their relative importance, and to marry them with your competencies to help you make smart decisions in this area. Okay, now I'm going to shift the focus next to the market in which accountants operate. And this is our second poll. Let's see if I can win my dollar back here. So the market for accountants is fundamentally changing, right? I'd like your views on this. Which of the following best describes your view? Some of you will say, yes, there is a complete reinvention of the accounting market occurring right now. Some of you will say, well, there are significant changes. Certainly there are some changes, and some of you will say, no, it's pretty much static. It's not changing. Let's open up this poll, Kim, and see what our friends say on this particular, the degree to which the accounting market is changing. Is it a fundamental reinvention? Is it significant? Is it actually broadly remaining the same? A very enthusiastic and fast responding group today. It must be a good time for people. And we have a winner emerging here. I think I would probably have guessed this one. So let's give this another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay, look, we have B. 55% of you. 55% of you said B, right? 33% of you said C. Well, yeah, it's changing, but perhaps not as in an alarmist sense that others might say. And then we do have 12% who said that there's a complete reinvention. So the winner here, just over half of you said B, 55%. That's interesting. No one, by the way, said the market is static. I'm not sure that markets are ever static. So I would share that view. B is the winner. Let's then move on to the market, because in your strategic meeting, you might want to consider the opportunities and the challenges which the market is presenting. Let's drill into this a little bit. When we talk market, we're talking about our clients, we're talking about the competition, we're talking about trends in the market, right? So let's think about our target client and think about your business, please. What are the attributes of your target client in terms of industry, perhaps the size of the business, what they are trying to accomplish? Are they growing businesses? Are they trying to increase their efficiency, their profitability, right? What is it about them that makes them uniquely interesting to you? The lifetime value that you can glean, and to what extent are those target clients currently in your client portfolio? You'll know that if you do client classification. We have tools to help with that. It's not very difficult, frankly, to classify your clients accordingly, to see whether how many of your target clients, and this might shift. You know, we have a client in Belgium which set out 2 years ago to service the hospitality industry. And of course, they're equally affected by COVID, and it didn't seem like a very good idea a year ago. and they reconsidered their target client. But in fact, they've actually reinforced the fact that that's the industry that they want to serve, and they found new niche areas in which they could serve their hospitality clients. So it's been quite an interesting process that they've been through. Now, the other thing that might be changing is the needs of your clients. What exactly do they want from you? Do they want you to help them improve their businesses? Do they want access to senior people in your organization to talk things through and be mentored by? Is it about constant communication or intelligent communication with your team? Is it maybe your technical skills? You know, a lot of accountants start with the technical skills idea and they think that's the most important. But the clients of our clients often tell us that it's something else. It's around helping them to build their businesses, etc. How have those needs shifted? Many of the accountants we work with are increasingly helping clients access government funding in the COVID environment, etc. That wasn't a need 2 years ago. Now it's very much a need, and it'll continue, particularly in the US, we're finding. Now, I talked about trends in the market, and what are some of the things that you think about as accountants? Well, the increased access to technology, which helps you to automate some of the key business functions that you're involved in. We often hear, and this is a thing we're hearing a lot of right now, we hear the difficulties of hiring the kind of team members that you want and then retaining them as well. And we are finding accountants are being challenged. There's downward price pressure, particularly in the commoditized area of your practices, the tax and compliance work, which compromises profitability, regulatory changes, both positive and in a negative sense as well. Regulations create a lot of work for accountants. The idea that some of your team members are working remotely more than before, perhaps they may be in the same city now, but they still work remotely. And then depending on your degree of optimism, you may say, well, we're doing COVID planning, or we're doing post-COVID planning now. We're thinking of the world in a post-COVID environment, right? Whatever the case, whatever your interpretation of this, it might be good to get around a table with colleagues and talk about these things and see what opportunities emerge that you could tackle in the coming year or years. The next thing I think we should focus on when we're talking about the market is the competition, because this is also a shifting landscape. Who exactly do you compete with? Obviously, there's firms that may look like yours that compete for the same clients, but perhaps they have changed in the sense that they have more offshore resources. They leverage technology better than they used to. Perhaps they can reduce their prices, etc. So how do you step up and show competitive advantage relative to those competing firms? Let me show you quickly a Panalytics tool. This is called Market Decoder. That's just a lot of numbers. Don't worry about that. Look over here where we worked with this particular firm to find, actually by interviewing some of their clients, some of the things that their clients value in the firm. Technical ability, this is not in any order. Likability, these are the things that the clients fed back to us. Responsiveness, proactivity, business improvement, etc. Right? These were the things that the clients of the accounting firm told us that they valued, right? The firm that's in question is in that column. And we looked at a bunch of competitors as well, including, if you look on the extreme right over here, the internal CFO, because that's who you compete with to some degree. Some of the firms will do the work internally if they can, and then other firms are offering services here. And using this methodology, we arrive at scores which detail how your firm is performing on each of these particular drivers, which your clients need. And we can then rank your firm relative to the competing firm. So you see that firm B here, for example, on the driver of proactivity is performing really, really well, better than your firm, which gives you direction on how you can improve your firm in the context of your market. I've used this tool with large companies like Unilever, etc., and it's proving to be very powerful with accounting businesses as well. So we've talked about vision and purpose, goals, and the market. What's next? Well, we've actually at some point got to decide to go and do stuff. we've got to decide what we're going to do, what the priorities are, who's going to do it, and when they're going to do it, right? And you wrap all of that up in what we call plans. I'm going to suggest to you that there are 5 areas you might look at, right? Some of your businesses are all about attracting new clients, or the priority is attracting new clients. In order to do that, you're going to have to communicate your competitive advantage, your products with clarity. You're going to have to generate leads through various channels, and then you're going to have to convert those through sales effectively, right? In an efficient way. Now, other businesses are thinking more about managing the existing portfolio of clients. Why do we focus on that? Because if we have satisfied clients, we tend to retain those clients, and it's easier to make cash out of our existing clients than it is necessary to bring in new clients through sales. So we really want to look after our clients. And if we do that, we may be able to sell them additional services, and they may even tell their friends about us, which is wonderful, because that's the best kind of sales we can do, is through referrals, right? So there are 2 priorities which you may have in your business. Others are thinking, well, what I'm selling now needs to evolve. It might need to become a more advisory type of solution, a more high margin solution. I might want to specialize in a particular area, and I may simply want to price my products differently by getting clearer on the value that we are providing. So this may be an area to analyze your current product portfolio and see where you can improve. This is highly strategic and long-term. Now, for others, you're more focused on internal business processes because you're finding that you are being held back. You're not properly automating certain processes which could be automated. Perhaps it's around training and educating people so that they can perform as well as possible. Maybe you lack information from a financial point of view, from a human resource point of view. Perhaps the investment in IT is not realizing what it ought to, etc. This is all a matter of internal process where sometimes a small improvement can make a very big difference. And the final area in planning is around team, because our businesses are only as good as how effective our team members are. So how are you going to hire people into your business and get them up to speed through onboarding? But then what does your organization look like now, in 6 months, in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years? What are the groups that you are going to develop internally to deliver what sort of value into your organization? I don't think there's enough thinking about this in accounting businesses, where a lot of firms have everyone kind of doing everything all the time. And then we can invest in training and professional development, and we can put in systems which help to manage the performance of our teams and ensure that they're properly compensated and incentivized through compensation. And longer term, we start to think, who are the high flyers in our firms that we want to develop into leaders and maybe even owners, right? So if your priority is around planning, here are 5 areas that you may focus on. Again, I repeat, the goal here is not to try and accomplish all of this, but to pick something that will make a difference based on your goals. Now, I think this is really important, and I'm often seeing firms that they may be very well run, but the partnership itself, the ownership of the business is a little bit fragile. And this is what one of our clients said to us just a month ago. A well-run business will fail where the partnership is vulnerable. So if the owners of the business are not seeing the future in the same way and collaborating and communicating appropriately, then the business will be at risk. And I'm afraid to say we see this more frequently than we'd like to. So this is a really, really important thing. Now, if you're a sole practitioner, this might equally apply, let's say, to your leadership team. Even a small business needs to ensure that there's proper collaboration among decision makers in the business. So here are some of the things we hear partners saying about their partnerships, right? They are quick to observe the following things. Well, one is around decision making. Maybe there's a partner meeting every month, but wow, it's difficult to get decisions out of partners, often because there's no delegation of authority, and the entire partner group needs to decide on things. And that means it takes a long time to get things done. And sometimes there are sensitive subjects which may emerge early on in a partnership. But, you know, it's not really bothering me too much today. I'll just let it slide. And this can sometimes explode later into something rather unpleasant. So we need mechanisms which help us to identify and then address sensitive subjects. And, you know, it's inevitable that as humans, we will have changing goals over time. So a 25-year-old newly graduated accountant, or a early 30s or early 40s, early 50s, early 60s accountant might have different goals as to what they want to achieve through their business activities. This is inevitable, but we may enter a partnership and a decade or two later, the goals have fundamentally shifted, but the partnership hasn't evolved to accommodate that shift. So we need to make sure we're aware of this. And obviously over time, some partners will exit the partnership, hopefully on terms which make sense to everyone. But we do need to think about the transition. What roles was the exiting partner fulfilling in the business, and how do we ensure that there's a smooth transition of those roles? And in the same way that partners exit, we may want to take on new partners, and we may have views as partners as to how that should happen. Are there candidates internally, or should we look to going external to our firm? And how exactly do we decide and make a smooth transition out of that? There are some tactical things. Again, this was, I've been speaking to partners about this in preparation, and I heard this a number of times, that we should have a view on how we utilize cash that the business generates. I mean, on the one hand, of course, we just distribute it to all the partners, but other partners might be thinking, no, if we invest this in the longer term growth of the firm and forfeit certain distributions today, we'll build a stronger firm, which will get us into a better position down the way. And that should be a priority. And then inevitably, if you put humans in a room for long enough, they're going to start to ask, well, what did everyone contribute here and what did they get out of it? And we try to have mechanisms which align these things, performance-based compensation, etc., because it's not obvious that perhaps the equity ownership of the business is the fairest way always over a long period of time to define compensation structures. So those are some of the things that we see partners wanting to talk about. And we feel this is very important because if we don't address these, it can affect even a well-run business. So those are some of the things that you might be talking about. Let me look now at some of the best practices, the how of running these meetings. And a lot of this is pretty simple. Before we get into that, here's your final poll. I'm just going to ask you, we run meetings effectively and we get an excellent return on our investment of time in those meetings, etc. How would you characterize your businesses? Absolutely. We're brilliant at running meetings, very productive, mostly, but some room to improve, plenty of room to improve. And we waste a lot of time, and this holds us back as a business. Let's see, Kim, what our friends say on this particular topic of running meetings effectively and efficiently. Okay, I'm fascinated to see where this ends up as well. And wow, we have a very clear winner here. If this were a horse race, the winner would be at the finish line while the others are coming down the final straight. There is some exciting data here. So look, let's give this another 5 seconds. There is an overwhelming winner. 5 seconds, 3 seconds, 2, 1. Thank you for your participation. So here's what we have. C, 2/3 of you said C, 65%, right? Plenty of room to improve in how we run our meetings, right? A quarter of you, 26%, said mostly there's some room to improve. Congratulations to one firm. I'd like to learn from you because you said absolutely, and that's wonderful. And then a couple of you said, yeah, we waste a lot of time. This is actually holding us back as a business. So 2/3 of you are C's, plenty of room to improve. Let's look at some ideas on how to do that, particularly around strategic meetings, right? That's the focus of today. So look, again, some of this will sound obvious. You know, I'm a little bit nervous that some of you are going to look at this presentation and say, wow, Mark said we have to go and get our vision, then we have to do goals, then we have to do plans, then we have to look at the market. I am not saying that at all. In fact, I'm saying that's the buffet of options you have, but you need to choose just one dish that's going to really, really appeal to you. And that's about not trying to accomplish too much. Pick something that really matters strategically and focus on that. And, you know, preparation is a very smart thing to do in life and in business, and particularly around strategic meetings. So one of the things that we need to formulate in advance is the agenda. In Panalytics, we use a tool which, let me just illustrate this to you. So this is basically a questionnaire sent to the partners, which is exploring what they want to achieve in their strategic meetings. So if you look at this question, we asked this 3-partner firm, this is real data, by the way, we should clarify the business vision, the why, the purpose. And 1 down here means completely disagree, and 7 means completely agree. So we have 3 partners, one of them saying, nah, that's kind of, we don't want to do that. We've done that. It's kind of a waste of time. We must focus on other things. But 2 partners, one of them saying this is really, really important. Another one's closer to a middle range here. Now, this tells me in advance of the meeting, we have some work to do. We need to build some consensus on whether this is important or not. Down here, we have much greater consensus, clarifying the strategy, how to achieve the vision. That's we have broad consensus here. Here's another example. We should focus on marketing and sales. That's when we're planning, that's where we should focus. But look what's happened. These guys have said, absolutely, let's do that. That's really important. But this partner has said, nah, that's less than half. We have other things to do. Now, as a facilitator, I would want to get a couple of these people in a room around these questions and say, look, what is the consensus here? Because I don't want to get to the meeting necessarily and argue about what we're going to talk about. I want to have the agenda formulated well in advance. And you know what might happen is we might come across some tricky, complex subjects in our formulation of the agenda. And that's fine, because I would rather that those do emerge before the meeting. And this is where we may have some pre-meetings. You know, I'm reminded of this wonderful Japanese concept called nemawashi. I don't know to what extent you are familiar with this, but a dictionary definition is an informal process, right? An informal process of laying the foundation for some proposed change or project, often a controversial one, often one where we don't expect to get agreement, by talking to the people concerned and gathering support and buy-in and feedback, right? So for example, I want to raise the compensation level of certain partners, for example, and I don't expect everyone to agree with this. So let me go and speak to people and get their views and allow them to be heard and explain the rationale for what we're trying to do. And perhaps I will get some buy-in prior to the meeting on that particular topic so that I don't have to deal with potential conflict at the meeting. This is just planning, and this is a concept I learned in Japan, which I think is a very powerful one, nemawashi. Who should be there? Look, sometimes it's the partners who go away to do a strategic meeting. Makes sense. They're the owners of the business, or even if they're non-equity partners, they're the drivers of the business. It may be that you have an exiting partner, and we are going to focus on forward-thinking planning for the next couple of years. Maybe that partner might not attend a certain strategic meeting. Perhaps we would bring some prospective partners to the meeting, and sometimes we might bring a manager or a key employee who could present to us on particular aspects of the business. So there's quite a lot to think about in the attendees of these meetings. I'm a big believer in facilitation in my own businesses. I would get outside help because I don't think that the business owner or the business leader is best placed to get the most out of everyone else in the meeting and out of the meeting itself. So engaging someone who will spend the time to understand the priorities and is skilled in getting people to speak up, etc., is really important. Sometimes these are called off-site meetings. I think it's smart to go off-site where because it gets you to think a little bit differently. It gets you out of your ordinary behavior. And part of thinking, remember, strategy is about thinking, is about taking different perspectives, new perspectives, innovating, right? Now, the thing about going offsite is that we need to plan it. And a lot of people feel, well, we'll just show up at this resort and everything will work out. But hey, we didn't have a whiteboard, and then we didn't have pens, and we forgot the projector. We didn't have morning tea, and we didn't book accommodation for everyone. And then we thought there was a casino, but there wasn't. They didn't plan these kinds of things properly. And we feel that planning, we've got to make these events a success. We don't do them very often, so let's make them hugely successful. And I think participation wherever possible by as many people is smart. So we like to delegate some of the preparation to many different people. This is not about one person droning on about everything that they've done and they want to do. Let's farm out the work. It could be you tackle the financial aspect of the planning, you tackle the HR aspect of the planning, you tackle the product aspect of the planning, etc. And then you run that particular section of the meeting. The facilitator may chair the meeting, but this is ultimately the meeting of the firm, and they should run different parts of it. And people will step up in interesting ways if they're given particular projects. Now, some of what we've talked about may seem very clinical and formulaic, but in fact, there's a time for complete brainstorming in these meetings, right? Let's just take a risk and think completely outside the box and think completely from a new, fresh perspective. That's to be encouraged, and we should do that in a way that everyone is comfortable to say some stupid things without fear of looking stupid. That's the environment that we want to create. Nothing is off the table. And someone asked me a question about this. They said, well, we're doing a strategic meeting, but we need to do it remotely because one partner is in Perth and doesn't want to fly here, and this other partner is here. So that's interesting. And I'm a firm believer that a lot more can be accomplished by people in a room when it's strategy at question. But if you have to do it remotely, break it up into smaller segments and delegate as much as you can, because the more people you have and the more changes and shifts you have in the agenda, you'll probably get a lot more out of it. And feel free to combine work and play. You know, we are fortunate to be on the Sunshine Coast, and we have a number of firms coming up to do fascinating things like emptying the mighty Pacific Ocean of its abundant supply of fish. We have cruises that people go on. We had a firm do some whale watching. This group was fascinated by falling off stand-up paddle boards. And then we had this fitness group who loved the CrossFit type of environment. We were able to organize that. Of course, there is the wonderful game of golf. US Open has just finished, and this is Mount Coolum, which we've seen many visitors climb to the summit of and enjoy a sandwich or beverage at the top. We have not yet persuaded any firm to do skydiving, but I'm absolutely determined to make this happen in the next year. Perhaps it could be your firm that comes up to the Sunshine Coast. And in addition to the wonderful strategic work we can do, you could also jump out of an airplane from 15,000 feet or more. What a wonderful idea. So feel free to combine work and play when we think of this important part, because life shouldn't be that serious. We need some sort of balance. Back to the actions, because some of the things we hear from firms who've been through strategy meetings as well, yeah, we had this great chat, but then nothing ever happened. Okay, have you ever heard that before? Well, we need to do better than that. So here's a little technique which might help you. There's lots of ways to do this, but describe the action, describe what you're going to do. This is a kind of a three-step process. Start with a verb. So in this case, example, we need to classify our clients. We don't know who we're working for. We don't know where we're making the money. We don't know who we should invest further in terms of relationships. We need to do some classification, okay? There's the action. Now, describe how you'll do it. There's a whole range of things we can talk about, the time frames, who's going to do it, the roles, etc., right? And start with in a way that, so to continue our example, we're going to classify our clients in a way that each partner, we're creating accountability, considers some specific criteria, the lifetime value of that client, the industry in which they participate, and the revenue opportunity from that client. So there are criteria which we've come up with to identify A-class clients. And there's a timeline here. They've got to do this by the end of July, right? So we've pretty much scoped out the actions which need to occur to classify clients. And the final part is to remind us why this is important. What are the benefits? And so we start this portion with so that. So we're classifying our clients by getting the partners to do all that stuff so that we increase client satisfaction, client retention, and upselling of tax planning services, quite specific, to achieve increased revenues of a certain amount in the fiscal year 2022. Now that's beginning to sound like an action which is attributed to certain people. They know what to do. There's a good reason as to why we are doing it. If we came out of our strategy meetings with 3, 4, 5 of these, we've probably got quite a lot of good work done. And we have finished our diagram here by also adding accountability and actions, right? Again, this is not the agenda for your meeting. We select from this list, but we must have actions and accountability. I'm about to finish up. I am grateful for your patience. If any of you are interested in working with Panalytics, we are doing literally dozens of these meetings now with clients. We adopt a 4-stage process, developing the agenda in the way that I've mostly described today, planning for that meeting, booking the skydiving, as I mentioned, facilitating the meeting to get the most out of your important contributions, and then the follow-up. That's the 4-stage process. Clients are investing a large range of money with us, $2,000 to $12,000. This will depend on the number of partners, the complexity, and a variety of factors. If you'd like to consider working with us, please get in touch and we'll obviously provide you with more detail around that. But let me leave you with this diagram. Again, this is not the agenda for your meeting, but in there lurks some of the really important stuff that you should probably be thinking about. For some of you, it's about action planning. For some of you, it's about understanding where you sit in your market. For some of you, it's goal setting. Some of you need to work on your partnerships. And some of you, it's the lofty ideas of why you are doing this business. And it could be a combination of those. But please, I hope you've got something out of this today. Kim has a final questionnaire that I think she'll flash up on screen. I will wish you the very best for the remainder of this fiscal year. It's almost done. And please get in touch if you'd like to talk about any of this. But wishing you a wonderful Wednesday and see you on our future webinars. Thank you very much. Bye.